Volunteer Radio Reading Service, a private not-for-profit organization. As always, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, or questions, and stay with us. Reading the Buffalo News is coming up in just a second.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, August the 18th. Your readers today are Lori and...
I'm Lita.
All right, let's talk about the weather. Sunny to partly cloudy today, pleasant and less humid, thank goodness. High of 79. Mostly cloudy tonight with a thunderstorm in spots later on, with a low of 64. Variable cloudiness tomorrow with a thunderstorm, high of 74. Thursday, mostly sunny, pleasant, and less humid with a high of 76. Friday, mostly sunny and nice, high of 79. Saturday, an afternoon thunderstorm, high of 78. Sunday, a few showers with a high of 71. If it's not warm enough for you here, go to Lake Havasu City, Arizona, 106, or cool off in Walden, Colorado at 36 degrees. Your air quality today is good, but your pollen is high.
And Lori can attest to that.
Yes, I can, because it's in my throat. You can hear it. The sun sets tonight at 8:13 p.m. Wow, it's just moving up and up and up. But I have some trivia for you. A golf ball will fly farther in warm, humid air or in cool, dry air. What do you think?
Humid air is a little bit heavier. I'm going to say cool, dry air.
Nope, it's warm, humid air. Sorry.
Darn.
Go ahead, Lena.
That was my first guess.
On to you.
On to me. Okay. So, for the second time this summer, an inmate has been found dead in the Erie County Holding Center. Manuel Ortiz, 46, a jail inmate since the 30th of December, was found unresponsive in his jail cell just past midnight on Saturday, according to a release from Sheriff John Garcia. Staff began life-saving efforts on the Buffalo man, including CPR and the use of an automated defibrillator, but were unsuccessful, according to the statement. He was pronounced dead at 12:51 a.m. Ortiz represents the fifth death linked to the county's jail in less than 1 year. Ortiz was indicted in Erie County on attempted burglary and criminal mischief charges stemming from an investigation by the West Seneca Police Department, according to the sheriff's office. He also had additional pending charges of burglary, criminal contempt, harassment, criminal mischief, and other charges in West Seneca Town Court and Buffalo City Court. The matter is being investigated by the Sheriff's Office Investigative Service Unit and has also been referred to the State Attorney General's Office and State Commission of Correction. An autopsy was performed Saturday morning. Results are pending. Ortiz's death is the third reported death associated with the county's two jails this summer and the fifth death reported since January of last year. On the 4th of July, Antonio Pizarro, who's 27, was found dead after apparently being attacked and killed by two other inmates in the holding center. The assailants, who have been accused of restraining and strangling Pizarro to death, have been charged with second-degree murder. On the 24th of July, Darko Tabar, 74, was evaluated by jail medical staff after he experienced difficulty breathing in the correctional facility, according to the sheriff's office. He was later taken by ambulance to Erie County Medical Center, and he died just before midnight. Tabar had a documented history of cardiac issues and foul play is not suspected, the sheriff's office said. On the 10th of December in 2025, Kadane Hale died of an apparent suicide in the correctional facility. He faced charges of murdering his girlfriend and newborn son and setting fire to the Elmwood Village apartment 2 months earlier. On the 19th of September in 2025, Niagara Falls resident Elizabeth Kaladi, who was 35, was found dead in her holding center cell 1 day after being booked. She had originally been arrested on charges of shoplifting from Tops Supermarket on Niagara Street in Buffalo. Her death was marked the first reported death within an Erie County jail last year.
And UB cancer researchers are struggling with insurance. Emily Eisenhart is wrapping up a project focused on developing a novel treatment for Ewing sarcoma, a bone cancer that affects children and young adults. Stephen Goralski is researching how a person's age affects the ability of tumors to produce new blood vessels. Even as they work in the high-stakes, competitive world of cancer research, Eisenhart and Goralski for the last 2 years have found themselves with something more immediate and personal to worry about: their own struggles to afford their health insurance. Eisenhart and Goralski are two of about 80 PhD students in the Roswell Park Graduate Division of the University at Buffalo. Those in the division are students at UB, but are paid an annual stipend of around $34,000 by Roswell Park. UB 2 years ago discontinued its health insurance plan for domestic students, which has left students in the division annually scrambling to secure an affordable health insurance plan. New York State's expanded essential plan provided them with a temporary solution, but that plan was scaled back July 1st due to federal funding cuts. We want to be worried about how do we get this novel medication into clinical trials, not how am I going to be able to afford my medicine, said Goralski, 29, who recently completed his second year in the program and his qualifying exam. The situation is complicated. In a statement, UB said the students have no employment relationship with the university and are part-time employees of Roswell Park who are not eligible for health insurance coverage through the Cancer Center. UB said it is actively engaged with the students to discuss their concerns about eligibility and access to health insurance. Despite these complications, the university is exploring what health insurance it can offer these students to meet their needs, UB said. Such coverage would be similar to student plans that the university made available, and that was prior to 2024, and options that the university makes available to certain special classifications of students, such as medical students and student athletes. In a brief statement, Roswell Park said it is pleased that these conversations are advancing. But while UB has made statements about potentially offering health insurance in recent months, the students in early August said that they have received no status updates or details of such a plan. They've all enrolled in marketplace plans for now, but those aren't easy to afford, and some come with high deductibles that mean students will try to go without care. It's not just people who have cancer who are affected by cancer. It's their entire networks. It's their coworkers and families and friends and neighbors. And it means a lot to me to try to improve that, even marginally, Eisenhart said. So to be doing all that good and then get left behind in your own ability to have health care, it's kind of personally devastating. Mm-hmm. While the students are covered now, they want to figure out long-term solution in the next several months. That means they won't have to regularly evaluate health insurance options in the marketplace. We want to just have a stable solution, Goralski said. One option is UB again offering coverage that is similar to students' plans it made available prior to 2024. Another option that the students have floated is the possibility of joining the Graduate Student Employees Union, which represents graduate assistants and teaching assistants and has access to health insurance through the New York State Health Insurance Program. To do that, UB would need to facilitate title changes for the students in the Roswell Park Graduate Division to make them eligible for the union. GSEU membership is limited to university employees, UB said. Because these students are employees of Roswell Park and not the university, they are not eligible to join GSEU or have access to its insurance plans.
That is being stuck between the hard rock and a hard place, right?
Sure is, yeah.
Terrible. So how about a little politics? Ossoff's stark words may be Dems' key to reining in Trump. Is there anything that can rein in Trump? That's just a personal comment.
I guess so.
All right, back to the article. Two rallies, nearly 1,000 miles and 2 days apart, laid out the increasingly stark choice confronting midterm election voters and a looming moment of reckoning over the nation's future course. In Atlanta on Sunday, Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff delivered an acidic takedown of President Trump, an economy that many voters think is failing them, and a war Trump started and has failed to resolve. Ossoff boiled the election down to a referendum on corruption, costs, and failed global leadership. Under Donald Trump, it costs more than ever to stock your fridge, to power your home, to make a cup of coffee, to buy school supplies for your kids or a tractor for your farm, the Democrat said. He accused the president of sleeping through meetings and lying about the war, and said that while sailors on the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier are doing their nation proud during a deployment of over 250 days, Trump spends his time playing golf and buying stocks. On Friday on Long Island, Trump gave the most explicit version yet of an argument Republicans hope will stave off the midterm curse that haunts incumbent presidents, even as their leader faces headwinds over his personal unpopularity, the Iran war, and voter frustration over high prices. He accused Democrats of wanting to turn America into a communist country and of declaring war on the police and the rule of law. The communists want to turn America into a third world country, into a hellhole of crime and filth, the president said, seeking to exploit the successes of progressive Democrats. The contrast encapsulates a bitter moment in American history as a deeply unpopular president attempts to dodge lame duck status by branding Democrats as un-American extremists. But he's facing opponents keyed into a classic change campaign as they attempt to saddle Republicans with Trump's failures and to tap into voters' fury over the State of the Union. Democrats have struggled for years to land disqualifying arguments against Trump. Their past warnings that U.S. democracy was in peril often seemed rather esoteric to people struggling to afford gas and groceries. Ossoff is providing something that the party has lacked: abrasive, robust language and framing that can be borrowed by other candidates to weave Trump's vulnerabilities into a positive case for their own campaigns. This is one reason a senator with a strong record of winning in the conservative South and among black voters, a critical Democrat constituency, is drawing talk of a possible 2028 run for president. First, however, he must try to win re-election. Ossoff is also showing how Democrats can pin down their individual opponents by linking them to Trump's record. He slammed his opponent, Representative Mike Collins, whom Trump jammed onto the ballot despite the objections of state leaders. Georgia deserves better than pro-war, pro-terror, pro-cutting your health care Trump puppet. Mike Collins, and America deserves better than Donald Trump, Ossoff told his crowd. Amid polls showing the Democratic senator in the lead, Collins told CNN's Manu Raju in July that his foe was lying, and the reason he is losing, and he knows he's losing. Trump is laying out a two-pronged campaign, claiming that his presidency is a historic success while branding Democrats as an unacceptable choice. In Long Island, he refused to apologize for a war in which U.S. credibility had been tested by a weaker power as Iran holds the world economy hostage by effectively closing the Strait of Hormuz. Yet Trump's vulnerable position on Iran was laid bare when he appeared to belittle the pain caused by the conflict at home. He said that it was worth it for people to pay a tiny little bit more for gasoline to prevent Iran's getting a nuclear weapon. His apparent indifference to affordable issues, which he again mocked as made-up Democratic talking points, also risks undercutting the more positive aspects of his economic message, such as larger-than-expected tax refunds under the GOP's 2025 domestic policy bill and efforts to cut prescription drug prices. Trump's searing assault on progressive Democrats is apparently designed to shift the narrative from his economic challenges. In addition to his claim about communism, Trump warned last week that we had jihadists being elected all over the place. His comment followed the triumph of Abdul El-Sayed, a public health professional and Muslim, over a more centrist candidate in Michigan's Democratic Senate primary. It should also be placed in the context of his repeated attacks on Representative Ilhan Omar, and Somali American from Minnesota. But Trump faces a risk that such divisive rhetoric will complicate one of the most important requirements of his re-election campaign, lining up independent and moderate voters in key states that swelled his coalition 2 years ago. Still, given the difficult terrain of the election, a strategy designed to fire up Trump's base may make sense. Republicans have tended not to drive out the broader MAGA coalition when Trump is not on the ballot. And incumbent parties in midterm elections often struggle to match the enthusiasm of partisans favoring the party desperate to win back power. In tight races, a high turnout of MAGA voters might be one way to stem GOP losses.
You know, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. Let's go to My View now, where Dennis Upton, who regularly portrays Joseph Ellicott, says everyone should know about Ellicott. Wednesday marks another bicentennial date in Western New York history. On August the 19th in 1826, Joseph Ellicott died in Bloomingdale Asylum in New York City. A remembrance of this man's life will be celebrated by the Holland Land Museum at Go Art, and that will be in Batavia at 7 p.m. on Wednesday. Joseph Ellicott's name was given to such places as Ellicottville, Ellicott Creek, Ellicott Square Building, the Ellicott Complex at UB, and Ellicott Square. The towns of Busty, Cazenovia, Holland, and Evans also received their names from the work that was done by Ellicott. Ironically, two of our most well-known presidents, Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, have far fewer places named locally in their honor. But Ellicott was the man who, in many ways, made Buffalo what it is today. In 2004, the city of Buffalo placed metal street signs around the city for a related bicentennial occurrence. In 1804, Ellicott laid out the streets of New Amsterdam, later to be known as Buffalo Creek, and even later just as Buffalo. He used the same radial street design as when he assisted his brother Andrew, the surveyor of record, in laying out the streets of Washington, D.C. Their inspiration, no doubt, came from Pierre L'Enfant, who assisted on the work in Washington before returning to France. Ellicott's work in Western New York began in 1798 when he directed the surveying of 3.3 million acres for the Holland Land Company. His plan for dividing the area into ranges and townships allowed for easier location of future sales. When it was realized that a canal was needed to ship goods and military supplies across the state, Ellicott was instrumental. One of the deciding events to make this occur was when Ellicott convinced his boss, Paul Busty, to donate 100,000 acres of land along the Pennsylvania border to the state. This gift helped the legislators reverse their thinking and proceed with the canal. Busty was very much against this gift of land, stating, "The magnitude of the undertaking of the canal is so great that it is impossible for me to believe that it will ever be perfected." Busty reluctantly agreed to this donation of land. Not long after, on April the 15th, 1817, the New York State Legislature passed the bill funding the canal. The following day, Governor DeWitt Clinton wrote to Ellicott stating, "I cannot leave this place without congratulating you upon the success of the canal bill." Over time, Ellicott's health declined. In 1821, Busty demanded Ellicott's resignation. In 1824, just 3 years later, as Ellicott's life slowly spiraled downward, those around him arranged to have him sent down the nearly completed Erie Canal to Bloomingdale Asylum. It was there that Ellicott took his own life. After his initial burial in New York City, Ellicott's sister had his body reinterred in his beloved Batavia, which he had founded in 1802. As a point of information for the reader or the listener, I have had the privilege of portraying Ellicott all over Western New York. My portrayal is set in the year 1824 during a difficult part of Ellicott's life. If you check out josephellicott.com, that's one word, Joseph Ellicott, you will find some of the more than 60 locations where presentations have been made, as well as upcoming opportunities to learn more about this remarkable man of Western New York history.
That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
I didn't know any of that. That's interesting. And so that, when you say Busty, I say Busty.
Okay.
Is that the guy? That must be Busty Avenue. right?
Oh, could be.
Yeah. So let's look at the editorial cartoon. The first one is I'm going to say probably the Abraham Lincoln, and on the ship, this warship that's sitting out in the middle of nowhere, there's a little speech bubble, and they're saying Pete Hegseth says we're getting all the supplies we need, and in the distance, approaching the warship is a helicopter carrying a big crate of testosterone. Okay.
Just what you need.
Just what you need. And the other cartoon, or whatever, editorial, is a picture of an elephant, and the elephant is looking very doomed and gloomed, and on the elephant is a political button that says AOC in 2028. Okay, so let's listen to another voice. Clear limits needed on license plate reader, and this was submitted by Assemblymember Pamela J. Hunter, and she represents New York's 128th district. As technology has become more commonplace in our day-to-day lives, we have incrementally ceded more and more of our privacy, including the terms and conditions we don't read or the internet cookies we grudgingly accept after being prompted for the 12th time. At least in those situations, we've tacitly agreed to the arrangement. Unlike the privacy choices we knowingly make online, most drivers have no idea when their vehicle is being entered into an automatic license plate reader database or how that information may later be searched and shared. This technology, when combined with increasingly powerful data analytics, does far more than simply take a picture of your vehicle. Over time, these systems can create a searchable record of when and where a vehicle has passed ALPR cameras, allowing significant portions of a driver's movements to be reconstructed. As a legislator, I believe New York must put significant safety guards in place to protect the privacy of law-abiding citizens. ALPRs have been installed in many municipalities along our most heavily traveled roads. Local governments contract with companies like Flock or Axon to install cameras on public roads that record license plates and other information from passing vehicles. These records can then be rapidly searched and analyzed by law enforcement. For police, this technology can be valuable when looking for a stolen vehicle, locating a missing person, or searching for a vehicle connected to a serious crime. That legitimate law enforcement value is exactly why I believe the answer is not to prohibit this technology, but to establish clear limits on how it can be used. While ALPR technology can help recover stolen vehicles and solve serious crimes, that does not justify maintaining enormous databases containing the movements of people who are not suspected of wrongdoing. These systems have recorded millions of data points on our vehicles without most drivers ever knowing it. Those concerns are not merely hypothetical. There have been documented cases of law enforcement officers misusing license plate databases to track romantic partners, former partners, and other individuals for personal reasons. Existing safeguards are inconsistent and insufficient to prevent abuse.
Ooh, I didn't really realize that was going on. And serious questions remain. Keene must pursue a complete investigation of the Shah Alam homicide. The death of Nurul Amin Shah Alam still demands a full accounting. Erie County District Attorney Michael Keene must vigorously pursue the investigation that's already underway, use all the authority available to his office, and ultimately provide a complete report of what investigators determine. The circumstances surrounding this incident remain deeply troubling. On February 19th, U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents picked up Shah Alam, a 56-year-old refugee from Myanmar who was mostly blind and did not speak English. Picked him up from the Erie County Jail and dropped him off in jail-issued booties instead of shoes in freezing temperatures, and dropped him off outside a closed Tim Hortons restaurant in Black Rock. He was found dead 5 days later. Attorney General Letitia James's office is unable to investigate Shah Alam's death for a possible crime because it lacks the necessary authority and jurisdiction. This limitation does not prevent Keene's office from pursuing and completing its ongoing investigation. Shah Alam's death was ruled a homicide, making it a serious investigation essential. Keene's office acknowledged hearing from the Attorney General's office and said its investigation remains ongoing, adding that it understands the public interest in the case and will provide an update at the appropriate time. James's Law Enforcement Misconduct Investigative Office, or LEMIO, will conduct a non-criminal investigation into possible systemic issues such as language access, disability accommodations, medical care, and Shah Alam's prolonged detention. In March, the Buffalo News reported that James's Office of Special Investigation, OSI, had begun investigating the incident. The office investigates every death in the state that may have been caused by a police officer or peace officer, such as a corrections officer, as the news reporter Robert Gavin wrote. It can then present evidence to a grand jury to seek an indictment or issue a report explaining why criminal charges were not brought. James said the law contained no language allowing OSI to investigate federal law enforcement officials, such as the CPB officers who dropped off Shah Alam. Investigative Post first reported that James could not continue the criminal probe. OSI asked CPB to identify the agents involved and produce all relevant records. David Banks, the top border agent in Buffalo, declined, offering OSI to a portal to file a Freedom of Information Act request. Referring state investigators seeking information about a man's death to the federal FOIA process is an inadequate response. CPB should cooperate fully with any lawful investigation into Shah Alam's death. Keene's investigation should establish what happened and whether anyone bears criminal responsibility. James's LEMIO investigation should determine what institutional failures contributed to Shah Alam's death and what reforms are necessary to prevent another vulnerable person from suffering that same fate. Jurisdictional limits may determine which agency can investigate which part of this case. They cannot be allowed to prevent the public from learning what happened or what must change to prevent it from ever happening again.
And moving over to an opinion piece by LZ Granderson from the LA Times. Racism in America's rearview mirror is closer than it seems. Little Rock, Arkansas. There's nothing wrong with this country that cannot be cured by what's right with it. This state's most famous native, William Jefferson Clinton, said so in his first inaugural speech as president back in 1993. And that sentiment permeates his presidential library, which locals told me he still visits regularly. In celebration of his 80th birthday this past Saturday, wow, the first 80 visitors were to receive a free watermelon, a gesture of his hometown of Hope, which is known for growing the fruit. Not sure if the 42nd president intends to be one of the lucky winners, but if a celebratory return home is on his calendar, I hope Clinton uses that opportunity to address what happened to 18-year-old Alyssa Hackett, not far from where his library stands. This month, the teenager filed a federal lawsuit alleging an Arkansas State Police trooper told her he was going to tune her up before throwing her to the ground and punching her in the face during a traffic stop. In a video circulating online, Hackett can be heard asking the officer what she did wrong, asking to call her mother, and screaming in pain from the officer's attack. Since the incident, Hackett has hired a civil rights attorney, Ben Crump, who is calling on local authorities to open a use of force investigation through the state police's Office of Professional Standards. Arkansas State Police have to explain to the public how that is a reasonable response to a teenager at a traffic stop, Crump said in a statement. If you cannot handle a teenage girl without taking her to the ground, cursing at her, and punching her in the face, you should not be wearing a badge. According to a report by the trooper, Moises Arellano, he pulled Hackett over for going 71 miles per hour in a 60 mile per hour zone. The incident has prompted lawmakers to schedule a meeting with Colonel Mike Hager, Arkansas State Police Director, and the state's Public Safety Secretary. I think anybody who's seen the video understands that putting a fist to a young person, a young lady's face, is never acceptable, State Representative Jay Richardson told the Arkansas Advocate. In addition to the lawsuit, the Arkansas Legislative Black Caucus and the NAACP's Arkansas State Conference are calling for an investigation as well. Residents are still waiting to see what Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders intends on doing about the incident, especially considering her recent Instagram post in which she proclaimed to be a protector of young women like Hackett. Only the weakest men compete in women's sports, and those celebrating it are just as weak, Sanders said. Women and girls deserve better, and as long as I'm governor of Arkansas, we will prioritize fairness over delusion and biological reality over political correctness. It's worth noting that former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson signed a law banning transgender women and girls from competing in school sports more than 5 years ago, and there are fewer than 10 transgender athletes total among the 500,000 NCAA students athletes nationwide. In other words, Sanders got all glammed up for social media to yap about a non-issue for her state. However, do you know what is a major problem in Arkansas? Policing. According to U.S. News and World Report, Sanders' state ranked 45th in public safety and dead last in corrections outcomes. Things aren't looking up. The trooper whose actions prompted the lawsuit has not even been put on leave. According to the lawsuit, Hackett, who is black, continues to suffer physical pain, humiliation, fear of law enforcement, anxiety, sleep disturbance, and emotional distress since the 1st of August incident. Even without the backdrop of the state's racial history, just seeing an 18-year-old being punched in the face by a much larger adult man should have been disturbing enough to get authorities to take Arellano off the streets. With that backdrop of history, from the Little Rock Nine, who integrated Central High School in 1957, to the protests this February in Jonesboro regarding use of slurs on Arkansas State University's campus, the lack of response is a sobering reminder that the prejudice in the country's rearview mirror is closer than it appears. Earlier this summer, a group of 11 Republican lawmakers led by Representative August Pfluger from Texas sent a letter to WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert demanding the organization protect Caitlin Clark, who is white, from receiving hard fouls in a league known for hard fouls. I wonder who in the GOP, a party that campaigns on protecting girls in bathrooms and locker rooms, is going to demand accountability for what happened to a young black woman on a dark highway road. I doubt a black male officer in Arkansas would be able to punch a white teenage girl in the face and then go back to work unaffected without even being put on leave during an investigation. Clinton knows this dynamic all too well. While in the White House, his administration investigated a string of black church arsons, bombings, or attempted bombings between the 1st of January 1995 and the 8th of September 1998. I have vivid and painful memories of black churches being burned in my own state when I was a child, he said in '96, adding that known KKK members had been arrested for some of the crimes. Here we are 30 years later, and well, there is nothing wrong with America that can't be solved by what's right with America. Being silent about what happened to Hackett would be wrong, and I hope Clinton joins with Crump, the NAACP, and local lawmakers to continue to do what we know is right. Speak out.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time? 34 minutes after the hour. Now we hear from Allison Schrager, who says why GDP is the greatest of all times, the GOAT, when it comes to economic statistics. It's an odd confession to make about a statistic, I realize, but then again, I am an economist, so I am just going to go ahead. I love GDP. GDP, for gross domestic product, the total market value of all final goods and services produced within a country's borders, is in many ways the ideal economic statistic. It is a single number that captures so much information with a scope and history unmatched by almost any other measure. And yet GDP has so many haters, many on the left. They want more emphasis on any negative externalities from growth or more value put on equality. Some make the point that there is more to life than income, which is true, but in no way invalidates GDP. And now Vice President Vance is hating on GDP. In his latest book, he has a long riff on the weaknesses of the statistics and writes half-jokingly that maybe economics is just fake. As economic populism becomes a force in both parties, expect more GDP haters. It is their worst enemy because it holds them accountable. Any statistical estimate is by definition imperfect and incomplete. What it includes and how it measures, for example, are both choices, and some statistics are better than others. Obviously, a statistic needs to tell you something useful, but it's also important that it can be estimated consistently, is transparent, and can be replicated. By these standards, GDP may be the best statistic. It does not capture everything that matters in an economy, but it is highly correlated with about 90% of the things that do, with health, employment, life expectancy, sanitation, opportunity, and education. It can be compared with that of other countries, and it can be compared across time. Used this ways, it shows the stunning increase in GDP in countries that offer their citizens a higher quality of life. GDP does not, as Vance points out, capture the fact that strawberries are prettier in Japan or that peaches taste better in France. GDP also does not capture inequality, the worth of leisure, or the value of unpaid housework. To address some of those weaknesses, the UN recently convened a commission to come up with something better. The commission proposed a dashboard of 31 indicators structured around 4 components, which was almost immediately criticized for being a waste of time. For one, 31 metrics don't deliver the single objective statistic that we need. This approach would also let countries and politicians pick how they are judged. The exercise proves why GDP can't be beaten, even if it's not perfect and doesn't capture everything everyone cares about. GDP skeptics have never come up with anything better, and while they make some valid points, occasionally their aversion to GDP reflects an underlying skepticism of economic growth itself. French economist Thomas Piketty, another GDP critic, recently admitted that yes, less growth is the point. Expect more skepticism from politicians too. The U.S., like a lot of other nations, faces many economic challenges, a large debt, an aging population, and a major technological transformation. How it manages these tests will show up in GDP. It can tell us not only how much of the economy is growing, but what the nation can afford and if it really is more productive. It can also show how the U.S. compares with other countries, making it easier for Americans to hold their leaders accountable for the choices that they make. Many European countries have stagnant GDP growth. Their politicians might argue this doesn't matter because they have other priorities, such as maximizing leisure time or reducing carbon emissions. These may be legitimate objectives, but they come with trade-offs in terms of lower living standards. Low GDP growth forces Europe's elected officials to reckon with that. For Vance, hating on GDP also creates an opening to evade accountability for his preferred economic policies of reviving low-skill manufacturing, industrial policy, and less trade. These policies would reduce GDP growth, making the Chinese economy look more successful by comparison. If you believe GDP isn't important, you can claim the numbers don't matter. If the U.S. enters a period of low growth and falling living standards, people will notice, regardless of what their leaders or the economists think of GDP.
Interesting. So many statistics out there that they use. Okay, so as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, you can call us at 716-821-5555. James William Bevavino. Geraldine Bomber, known as Jerry, Nee Stakoyak. Diane L. Kalinowski, Florence Maj, M-A-J, Grawn, Audrey Robinson, Mary Weeks, known as Kate, and we have lost another young star to the stress of being a young star. Actress Hayden Panettiere, known for portraying an indestructible cheerleader in the series Heroes and a country music sensation in the show Nashville, was found dead on Sunday in her apartment. If you need any further information on any of these names, again, please call us at 716-821-5555.
Guess what it's time for?
What time is it?
It's time for the Royal Stars.
All right.
Happy birthday for Tuesday, August 18th. You're farsighted, benevolent, and progressive. An independent thinker, you want to improve the lives of others. Let go of people, places, and things that hold you back. Aries, this is a passionate, intense day. Although your impulse is to play and socialize, check out the temperature of the room first. Tonight, check your finances. Taurus, be cooperative and accommodating today. Family discussions will be upbeat. However, someone might be stubborn. Tonight, listen to someone. Gemini, what you need today is for someone to listen to you. Today, your first impulse is to be of service to others or to help someone if you can. Tonight, work to get yourself better organized. Cancer, although you have a strong focus on money, earnings, and cash flow, social outings will appeal to you today. Check out sports events like maybe the practice for the Bills, movies, fun get-togethers, and playful activities with your kids. Tonight, continue to enjoy socializing with someone. Leos, home and family have your attention today. A discussion with a female family member is likely. Tonight, you get to relax at home. Virgo, today when talking to others, you want to have a real, meaningful conversation, not just a superficial chit-chat. Tonight, an interesting conversation will occur. Libras, today you have a tendency to identify with your possessions. You might consider buying wardrobe items. Okay. Tonight, check your belongings. All right. Scorpios, you create a great impression on everyone because the sun is casting you in a flattering spotlight. A favorable situation for you. Tonight, you are strong. Sagittarius, you're keen to get out of town or find a change of scenery. Nevertheless, today in particular, you're happy to be low-key and work alone or behind the scenes. Tonight, you will enjoy your privacy. Capricorns, today you're giving thought to your friendships, which is why your contact between yourself and a friend might be deeper than usual. You might even feel supportive or protective of someone.
I should hope so.
Tonight, more time with friends.
All right.
Aquarius, be aware of this in case you have to do some damage control. Keep in mind that you need more sleep this week. Tonight, you'll be admired while you're sleeping.
That's right. Look at that beauty sleeping there.
Pisces, you're happy to work and accomplish things this week. You're also open to socializing and checking out competitive sports. Tonight, you, Pisces, can explore. That's it for the stars today.
All right. Those are very interesting.
I'm going to sleep tonight.
I'm going to watch.
Oh, heck.
Okay. Straight face now.
On to the news.
On to the news. Buffalo Next Development, Seneca Niagara Resort and Casino is going to get major renovation. The Seneca Resort and Casinos on Monday unveiled plans for a $47 million renovation of almost all of its 604 hotel rooms at the Seneca Niagara Resort and Casino, marking a major investment to refresh the region's largest hotel. A total of 594 rooms and suites on 22 floors will be renovated during the 14-month project, which will start in October and will take place in phases of 3 floors at a time. Full completion is expected by the end of 2027. With this latest evolution, we continue to elevate our world-class atmosphere and keep Seneca Niagara at the leading edge of luxury to make each stay with us even more memorable, Seneca Resorts CEO Kevin Nephew said. This is the first complete renovation of the rooms since the hotel was built 20 years ago, although there have been minor refreshes to furnishings and fixtures over the years. The project covers all but the 10 penthouse units, which were already refreshed and don't get as much use. Each room will see about $80,000 in renovations, including new carpeting, tiles, wall coverings, and shower fixtures and vanities, as well as custom-designed furniture and a bed throw that carries the Seneca Nation seal. The hallways and elevators also will be refurbished. Everything in here is being redone, Nephew said. This is the first full renovation where we're touching every inch of the room. We wanted to make sure we got it right. There are also cultural elements, including original artwork on the walls from Seneca members' artists. We paid a lot of attention to honoring the environment as well as our culture, and we've gone through it, Nephew said. Completed in April 2006, the 26-story Seneca Niagara features 394,000 square feet of room space, several restaurants, a spa and indoor pool, a fitness center, high-end retail, meeting and banquet space, and the 2,300-seat Seneca Niagara Event Center. Nephew said the hotel was still in great shape, but the company wanted it to remain in that lead as the premier product in all of Western New York. Last year, the complex had more than 181,000 occupied hotel room nights, with another 141,000 so far this year. The housekeeping team has done tremendous work in keeping the hotel itself in great shape up to this point, but it was time, Nephew said. How can you continue to say you're the premium product when you're starting to languish? Planning for the renovation has been underway for more than a year and included a master planning process with collaboration from senior leadership as well as input from facilities and housekeeping staff and even customers. Everyone who has a part in maintaining these rooms, they were a part of that conversation up front, said Joseph Fanara, Seneca Resorts Vice President of Design and Construction. On Monday, officials showed off 3 model rooms that have already been redesigned to show the new look, representing the 3 types of guest rooms available: a corner suite, a center suite, and a standard king or double room. And it looks pretty amazing, I gotta say. Behind the bed, where your headboard would be, there's this, almost looks like a fence, and a mountain scheme with, it's all lit up so it kind of glows behind the bed.
It looks quilted too and lighted. It's really neat.
Yeah, it is. It's really kind of cool. And also the bed has the Seneca Nation logo, which is also pretty awesome. The floors look very like natural, almost like woody, like they have a wood pattern to them. Very nice, very nice. And continuing on, room rates will vary based on occupancy, demand, seasonality, and whether it's a weekday, weekend, or holiday. But the standard king or double room starts at $189 a night, while the center suite starts at $350 and the corner suite is $389. It's tough. We have a lot of the furniture that's being fabricated and manufactured overseas. The tariffs did hit us on that part and did impact the overall cost, Fanaro said. So it's something we had to manage through, think of new ways to logistically get it done, and manage the cost as best as possible. The gaming floor is expected, there we go here, I lost it. The gaming floor is expected, why are you doing that
To see
me?
its own renovation in the future, although officials would not divulge their plans yet. There are no plans for major renovations to the event center at this time, aside from upgrades to speakers or lighting, Nephew said.
The new project follows a $2.7 million renovation of the Seneca Cafe restaurant at Seneca Allegheny Resort and Casino and a $5.8 million renovation of the popular Thunder Mountain Buffet that is currently underway at the same resort, with completion expected by November. Besides these smaller projects, Seneca Resort is also working on plans for other major works over the next few years through its portfolio of 3 properties: Seneca Niagara, Seneca Allegheny, and Seneca Buffalo Creek Casino in downtown Buffalo. Seneca Allegheny already went through a renovation in 2021. We're working on an exciting new chapter, said Allie George, Seneca Game Corporation chairman. The projects we are considering at each property are designed to maximize what makes each Seneca Resort and Casino property a world-class destination.
And a foundation is set for the next phase of the Shays Project. It's not every day that a press conference is held in the middle of a deep hole about 15 feet below the adjacent pavement. But that's where Shays Performing Arts Center CEO Brian Higgins and other officials gathered on Monday in what Higgins jokingly referred to as the pit, to highlight the construction progress for the $34.5 million expansion of Shays Buffalo Theater. The site is fenced in, thank goodness. The ground has been excavated down to the bedrock. Foundation walls have been poured on 3 sides of what will become a basement for storage, trash, mechanicals, and volunteer space, with the 4th side coming soon. For a century, Shays has been a place where the community comes together, Higgins said. We are laying the foundation for the next century, one that brings new excitement and opportunity to our city and our theater, and unprecedented accessibility to Shays visitors for generations to come. Higgins said the project is about 15% complete and will shift to the vertical phase next week, with steel arriving shortly. Completion is slated for November of 2027. We feel very confident that with contingencies and understandings, we'll deliver this project on time and on budget, he said. We're very, very bullish about achieving these goals. Shays is undertaking a massive expansion of its facility as it marks its 100th anniversary this year, with a project that will increase the size of the theater building by adding a new lobby and entrance, new concession space, upgraded bathrooms, and 3 high-speed elevators. Just shoot you right up to the top. The goal is to make it easier to get patrons into and around the National Historic Landmark building, providing more room for movement and more amenities to improve the experience. No changes will be made to the 3,019-seat Historic Theater, which opened back in 1926. As we celebrate Shays' centennial year, this project moves from vision to reality, ensuring that one of our state's most treasured historic theaters becomes fully accessible and welcoming to all, Governor Hochul said in a statement. By modernizing this iconic venue and building, we are not only preserving a magnificent piece of our history, but we are also creating jobs, boosting tourism, and strengthening Western New York's cultural fabric for the next 100 years. Plans call for construction of a 4-story, 25,600 square foot addition to the rear parking lot on the south side of the building on Pearl, creating a dramatic entrance for both pedestrians and vehicles, complete with a new drop-off loop and heated pedestrian paths, as well as digital displays and new lighting. Designed by architects at Carmina Wood Design and built by Buffalo Construction Consultants, the addition will feature a combination of limestone, stainless steel, and glass in a tiered building with crystal-inspired chandeliers, terrazzo flooring, flexible lounge seating, and a new bar inside. Wow.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It will include a new box office, expanded lobby and event space, concessions at each level, 63 additional bathroom fixtures, hopefully in the ladies' room, to reduce lines, and other needed accessibility upgrades such as the elevators. It will also include a new outdoor patio, a sensory room for people with special needs to enjoy performances, and expanded space for programming before and after shows, as well as during special events. This expansion moves us from celebrating a century behind us to building a foundation for the one in front of us, Higgins said. Shays has obtained most of the funding for its Elevate Shays project, with over $28 million in hand and committed. That includes $18.5 from the state, with $7.5 through the New York Power Authority's Power Proceeds program. There's also $1 million committed from Shays Spotlight volunteers, plus other funding from foundation, corporate, and individual partners. To cover the rest, Shays is launching its I Built Shays movement to encourage community members to chip in, with a goal of raising $1 million by the end of this year. Each person who donates at least $100 for the 100th anniversary will be featured in a signature component of the new building, Shays said. Shays has never belonged to any one generation. It belongs to all of Buffalo, held in trust for the next 100 years, says Shays Chairman Marco Cercone. That's a responsibility that the board takes seriously, and it's one we're asking this community to share. Construction began in June with site excavation, pile and driving, foundation wall construction, and preparation for new utilities. The elevator shaft foundations were finished just last week, with the rest of the foundation slated for completion by the end of August, before work shifts to masonry, elevator, and stair towers. Workers also finished repointing and restoring the historic south brick wall of Shays. The old foundation wall of the former bowling alley that used to exist on the parking lot site is now exposed, but that portion of the pit outside the new foundation walls will be filled in and covered with the driveway entrance, heated sidewalk, and outdoor patio. Currently, about 20 to 25 workers are on site at any given time, but at peak construction, the project will include more than 75 construction workers from 28 local subcontracting businesses. So far, so good, said Brad Fisher, Vice President of Operations for Buffalo Construction Consultants.
That sounds all good.
It does.
That's a great place. And this is kind of disheartening. A record share of kindergartners had vaccine exemptions. A record share of kindergartners in the United States had an exemption for a required vaccination last school year, as the Trump administration continues to make moves to reduce the number of vaccinations recommended for children. An executive order signed by President Trump last week aims to reshape the federal government's approach to vaccines. The order offers recommendations to give parents more information and options, but the authority to set and enforce vaccine requirements still lies with states, and a growing share are utilizing existing policies that allow exemptions. The administration signaled that it will push states to rework their vaccine requirements to incorporate the new federal guidelines, effectively upending long-standing practices aimed at improving childhood immunization rates. It's unclear exactly how officials plan to reinforce this, but the Department of Justice, the Department of Education, and the Department of Health and Human Services have been directed to tie compliance with federal funding. The new executive order emphasizes the administration's aim to maximize parental choices over vaccinations for their children, specifically noting that states should provide religious and medical exemptions to vaccine requirements. All 50 states have their own laws requiring certain vaccines for students to attend school, and all allow students to be exempted from school vaccines required for medical reasons. The vast majority of states also allow vaccine exemptions for non-medical reasons, which may be categorized as religious or personal. The utilization of these exemptions is more common than it's ever been. Data published Monday by the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention shows that 4.2% of kindergartners had an exemption for at least one required vaccine during the 25-26 school year. This left about 157,000 new school children without full coverage for at least one state-mandated vaccine last school year. The CDC data shows nearly 20,000 more than the year before. That's a lot. The share of students with the vaccine exemption is the highest on record and twice as high as it was a decade ago. Last school year, only 0.2% of exemptions were for medical reasons, a share that has held steady for years. Exemptions increased in all but 9 states, and nearly half of states report exemptions exceeding 5%, according to the CDC.
You're listening to reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, August the 18th, on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We will return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are Lori and
Lita.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are...
Lori.
Are you sure?
I think so.
All right, and I'm Lita, and I know that for sure.
Okay, good.
All right, so 3 Western New York nursing homes to pay $9 million over fraudulent billing scheme. 3 nursing homes in Western New York will pay $9 million to the state and federal governments to settle claims that the facilities submitted tens of thousands of fraudulent charges to Medicaid and Medicare to boost revenues by millions of dollars. The settlement announced Monday involves Sapphire Rehabilitation of North Towns in the town of Tonawanda, Sapphire Rehab of South Towns in Buffalo, and Williamsville Suburban Care Center in Amherst. All 3 homes are low-rated for-profit facilities that share some common owners. The settlement came after a joint investigation by the New York Attorney General Medicaid Fraud Control Unit and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of New York. From the 1st of July 2016 through the 31st of December 2020, the 3 nursing homes submitted data to the state health department that falsely inflated the amount of rehabilitative services that certain residents needed according to court records. That inflated data led to an increase in
Medicaid reimbursement rates.
This practice is often referred to as an upcoding or billing government program, or insurers for more complex treatments than were actually performed or necessary. Nursing homes that commit financial fraud are stealing funds meant to provide care for our most vulnerable, Attorney General Letitia James said in a statement. The Sapphire homes used fraudulent data to rake in millions of dollars from Medicaid without regard for the needs of residents they were supposed to be serving. Added U.S. Attorney Michael D. Giacomo, Medicare and Medicaid fraud drains taxpayer funds and weakens these vital government programs. This settlement reinforces our commitment to safeguarding federal funds and ensuring seniors receive the care they deserve. An attorney for the Sapphire homes did not respond to an inquiry seeking comment. Under the settlement, the homes admitted wrongdoing and will pay $6 million to Medicaid, with $3.6 million going to New York State and $2.4 million to the federal government. The nursing homes also will pay another $3 million to the federal government for defrauding Medicare. In addition, the facilities must adopt new policies and procedures to ensure that residents covered by Medicaid receive all the service they need and that services are properly documented to prevent future fraud. The government investigation began after a whistleblower complaint filed in December of 2020 by an employee who worked at Sapphire from 2009 to 2020. The whistleblower will receive a 20.75% share of the federal recovery in this case. Wow. Based on a federal recovery of $5.4 million, that share could be worth up to $1.12 million.
Ooh.
Not bad. According to the whistleblower complaint, Sapphire Rehabilitation pressured its therapists to provide more therapy than what was medically necessary for patients. And in some cases, therapists were pressured to bill 720 minutes per week for each patient considered an ultra-high level of care that comes with higher reimbursements, the lawsuit claimed. But many patients, the suit notes, could not tolerate a full 720 minutes of therapy per week due to physical limitations. In some cases, the lawsuit states therapists claimed their occupational therapy recommendations were altered upward by managers. In other cases, Sapphire falsified therapists' notes to reflect higher levels of service than what was really provided, according to the lawsuit. In one example, a male patient had refused therapy one day in December of 2019, but the therapist later checked the notes and found the record had been altered to reflect the patients had received 65 minutes of therapy on that day. In its investigation, the New York Attorney's General Office picked up on a trend in the reporting of data by the Sapphire homes. In New York, nursing homes are required to submit data accurately reflecting the care required by their residents to the state health department. The department then uses that data to calculate the nursing home's Medicaid reimbursement rates for all claims submitted within the following 6 years.
Months.
6 months. Thank you. For years, the Attorney General found the Sapphire homes inflated the amount of rehabilitative services that residents needed during the period that affected their Medicaid reimbursement rates. But during the periods that didn't affect the reimbursement rates, the Sapphire homes reduced the amount of rehabilitative services provided to residents. That is bad.
And over 300 properties were cleared as agencies look for radiation. State and federal officials have now approached 1,345 property owners in Erie and Niagara counties for permission to search for signs of elevated radiation and whatever might be causing the high readings that have alarmed residents this summer. So far, 847 of the property owners have granted permission to officials from the State Department of Environmental Conservation and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for further investigation. The searches are taking place in Niagara Falls, the town of Niagara, Lewiston, Lockport, and Grand Island. The ongoing investigation is looking for evidence of buried radioactive materials. As of Friday, the agencies had determined more than 300 properties were cleared, meaning no unnatural radiation levels were found there, according to the DEC. Surveys include walking the properties with handheld radiation detection equipment. If elevated levels are found, the agencies may take soil and indoor air samples. At least 160 state and federal agents are conducting the surveys in Erie and Niagara counties, amounting to what may be one of the largest and most widespread investigations for buried waste that have happened in New York's history. The screening that's going on in Niagara is not the end. It is the beginning, Governor Kathy Hochul stated during a meeting with the Buffalo News on Friday. Hochul, who has received criticism for her refusal to visit families in the town of Niagara, told the news on Friday that she did not want to politicize the radiation investigations by showing up in Niagara County. However, over the weekend, Hochul called multiple families whose properties showed higher than normal radiation readings, according to a source who is familiar with the matter. Hochul, meanwhile, said she remains confident in the officials and the agencies she has deployed to that area. I've had my DEC commissioner, I've had my health commissioner, and Megan Baldwin, his deputy secretary for health, go there, Hochul said when asked to respond to residents' frustrations. And beyond just having the commissioners go to meetings and sit down with people and talk through this, we've offered technical assistance, even offering people relocation who don't even qualify necessarily under the current rules that we have. I said, if they feel better, just move them. Starting July 17th, 4 families have been offered relocation assistance from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. As of Sunday, the families have not yet been relocated due to difficulties finding suitable homes. The EPA is funding the investigations of the properties under its authority under the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, CERCLA, that was enacted by Congress in 1980, also known as Superfund. The highest reading in data provided to the news was 1,040 microantigen per hour, or UR per hour. It was found in a backyard, and it is about 52 to 104 times above typical background levels in western New York. If someone remained continuously at the location where the 1,040 URHR reading was recorded 24 hours a day for an entire year, a rough conversion would produce an estimated radiation dose of about 8,000 millirem. Receiving that dose is unlikely, but it exceeds the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission's cleanup standard of 25 millirem per year and the EPA's of 15 millirem per year. The average American receives a total annual dose of about 360 microrem, mostly from natural sources, according to the U.S. Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. Despite the high radiation readings in that location, health physics experts have told the news that residents are unlikely to see any measurable health effects from consistent exposure of to the materials. Even if you were to stay there on that spot, if you accumulate that over the years, it's still not expected to see any measurable health effects, said Kai Vetter, a nuclear physics professor at the University of California, Berkeley, who reviewed the property data obtained by the news. Regardless, the materials dumped in the yards could be leading to high indoor radon levels, Vetter and other experts said. Radon is a gas heavier than air that is produced from decaying radioactive elements. It often builds up in basements and is the leading cause of lung cancer among non-smokers and the second leading cause of lung cancer overall, according to the EPA. The DEC and EPA took indoor radon readings in at least one Niagara County home, but those results are still pending, according to the homeowner. The agencies, along with the State Department of Health, will conduct drop-in sessions for residents to learn more about the radiation surveys, according to the DEC. The sessions are scheduled as follows. This Thursday, August the 20th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Niagara Falls Convention Center, located at 101 Old Falls Street, that's in Niagara Falls. Monday, August 24th, again, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Lewiston Library. That is located at 305 South 8th Street, and that's in Lewiston. Residents who have questions about the ongoing radiological assessments are encouraged to call the following number, 518-712-8279. That number is 518-712-8279. It's a dedicated phone line for the Niagara and Erie County Radiological Assessment. This phone line will be monitored daily from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. or you can email the team at necra@dec.ny.gov. That's NECRA for the Niagara Erie County Radiological Assessment at dec.ny.gov. Residents can also visit the dedicated web page on.ny.gov/NECRA and sign up for updates that they will receive by email.
That is a scary thing for those
is.
people. Okay, so the Buffalo Diocese is moving ahead with plans to shut down a North Tonawanda church just weeks after it was reopened for masses to satisfy a Vatican ruling. Bishop Michael Fisher has issued a new decree that will close St. Jude the Apostle Parish in North Tonawanda and merge it with St. Christopher Parish in the town of Tonawanda. Fisher's latest decree was issued earlier this month and is effective next Monday. An announcement of the decree was posted this past weekend in the printed bulletins of the Roman Catholic community of the Tonawandas, a family of parishes that include St. Jude, St. Christopher, Our Lady of Czestochowa, and St. Amelia, as well as St. Francis of Assisi Chapel. The decree was posted at the RCCT website. It was the most recent twist in the off-again, on-again, willy-nilly saga of St. Jude the Apostle Parish, located on Niagara Falls Boulevard about 3 miles north of St. Christopher Parish. So here's your history. On the 21st of January of 25, as part of a parish restructuring plan for all 8 counties of the diocese to address declining mass attendance, weakening parish finances, and a growing shortage of priests, Fisher issued an initial decree on the 21st in 205, merging St. Jude with St. Christopher. On the 4th of February in 25, Fisher also issued a decree removing the status of St. Albert as a Catholic church, allowing the property to be sold. St. Jude the Apostle Parish itself, the result of a 2007 merger, was located at St. Albert. On the 3rd of May in 25, Victoria Vanille, a parishioner acting on behalf of herself and other parishioners, submitted 2 requests for recourse to the Dicastery for Clergy, an office of the Vatican, asking for a review of Fisher's decrees. On the 4th of May in 25, St. Jude the Apostle parishioners celebrated a final Mass. On the 4th of August in 25, Vanille received a letter saying the Dicastery for Clergy was examining her request and has suspended the bishop's decrees. On the 9th of May in 26, Vanille received Dicastery decrees overturning original diocese merger and closure decrees. And on the 5th of July, parishioners celebrated First Mass at St. Jude's the Apostle in more than a year. The Reverend Michael Lamarco, pastor of the Roman Catholic community of the Tonawandas, told the Buffalo News in July that many St. Jude parishioners had registered with other parishes within the family. He had asked them to re-register at St. Jude by the end of July if it was their intention to return long-term. The vast majority of the 550 members who had been part of St. Jude prior to 2025, the merger decree, did not re-register at the parish, Lamarca said in the August 16th bulletin. Fisher's latest decree also noted that a successful de facto merger has already taken place. While the finances of St. Jude the Apostle Parish have been maintained as separate accounts, the integration of people from St. Jude the Apostle Parish into the other parish communities has, for the most part, already taken place, the decree stated. This fact supports my decision to instinctively merge St. Jude the Apostle Parish into St. Christopher Parish for the good of the faithful and the health of the priests. Amid their joys for the reopening of St. Jude, some parishioners also expressed frustration that the parish was being set up to fail because masses were limited to the first Sunday and first Friday of the month, and there were no missalettes in the pews and no collection baskets during masses. Parishioners who were pushing to keep St. Jude open as an independent parish were still considering whether they will appeal the bishop's latest decree, said Mary Pruski, a spokeswoman for Save Our Buffalo Churches, a nonprofit that had been assisting parishioners in fighting closures and mergers. Save Our Buffalo Churches will support St. Jude parishioners if they pursue another appeal, but it's totally their decision, and none has been made yet. They're getting a lot of community support, she added. It broke all of our hearts to see that, but we'll see where it goes. An appeal must be filed to the bishop within 10 days from the time the bishop's decree was made public. A bishop then has 30 days to respond before a recourse request may be filed with dicastery for clergy. Van Til did not immediately reply to a voicemail request for comment.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 16 minutes after the hour, and Canada is bracing for the impact of 50% tariffs. Ottawa, Canada faces a new round of 50% U.S. tariffs this week that businesses said could cause job losses in some already struggling industries, while complicating broader negotiations over the future of North America's free trade agreement. President Trump last month invoked Section 338 of a Depression-era U.S. law called the Tariff Act of 1930 to impose duties starting on Wednesday on a range of Canadian imports, including wine, furniture, dairy products, cement, clothing, fishing rods, hockey equipment, and some other goods. That provision permits the U.S. president to impose punitive tariffs of up to 50% against trading partners who are deemed to have discriminated against U.S. goods. Trump's unprecedented use of this power is part of his hardline approach toward trade with Canada since he returned to the presidency last year. Canada is the number 2 trading partner of the United States, behind only Mexico. The tariffs would cover nearly $20 billion of Canadian goods, amounting to about 5.2% of the $383 billion worth of goods the United States imported from Canada in 2025. As the tariff deadline draws near, Canada's minister responsible for U.S. trade relations, Dominic LeBlanc, and its chief trade negotiator, Janice Charette, have stepped up talks with their U.S. counterparts. Canada and the U.S. are still far from reaching a draft trade deal, despite regular meetings, LeBlanc told an advisory committee on Friday, according to a source briefed on the matter. The new duties would apply even to products that qualify for preferential treatment under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, which has shielded much of Canadian trade from tariffs, posing an added risk to Canada's economy. Last month, Trump refused to extend the USMCA agreement for another 16 years, subjecting the pact to annual reviews, a process that is likely to prolong the trade uncertainty, which has sapped investments and job growth in Canada. Individual sectors could face the brunt of those tariffs, leading to more job losses, lower growth. Canada's struggling wood products sector and the wine industry, already affected by raging wildfires in the country's west, could be hit hard by the new tariffs. Alain Ulizo, owner of Cabico Limited, a custom kitchen cabinet brand in Canada, said that if the tariffs are imposed, the consequences for the industry could be severe. A 50% tariff is simply not something that manufacturers can absorb, nor can we reasonably expect our U.S. customers to absorb it. It could make certain Canadian-made products economically non-competitive in the U.S. market virtually overnight. Small and medium-sized businesses could be particularly vulnerable because many rely heavily on tariff-free access to U.S. customers. If the tariffs come into effect, they will cause massive dislocation for small businesses that rely on U.S. clients and American buyers that rely on Canadian suppliers, said Dan Kelly, president of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. The tariffs would still maintain Canada as one of the lowest tariff rate countries to export to the United States, according to Joseph Steinberg, a University of Toronto economics professor. Steinberg said the greater concern is whether another escalation in the U.S.-Canada trade dispute halts talks over the broader USMCA agreement and what happens to the affected sectors. In the macroeconomic sense, the tariffs are actually not that big of a deal, Steinberg said. LeBlanc has met with U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer 5 times, including a virtual meeting on Sunday, in 4 weeks as the two nations seek an agreement before Wednesday's deadline. Greer has pressed Canada over its dairy system and the removal of U.S. alcohol from stores in several provinces, issues that trade experts expect to feature prominently in any agreement. Ted McKinney, CEO of the U.S. National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, called dairy the most contentious agricultural issue. It is more than a sticking point, McKinney said. It's probably the major issue.
And some little bit of local news here. 5 firefighters were hurt in a blaze on the west side. 5 firefighters were injured battling a 2-alarm house fire early Sunday that spread to 2 neighboring structures on the city's lower west side. The fire was reported at a vacant home at 247 Trenton Avenue between Virginia and Maryland Streets at about 3:15 a.m. Sunday. A second alarm was sounded 15 minutes later, according to the office of Mayor Sean Ryan. Structures on both sides of the vacant home sustained damage. One of the buildings was vacant, while the other had 2 apartments that were occupied. The Red Cross was called to assist 3 residents. The injured firefighters were treated and released from ECMC. The cause of that fire remains under investigation. In a separate incident early Monday morning, firefighters responded to a vacant warehouse on East Ferry Street for a 3-alarm blaze, according to the mayor's office. Fire broke out at the 750 East Ferry near the corner of Fillmore Avenue at about 4:15 a.m. Monday. The burning building was a 2-story, 22,500 square foot warehouse. Investigators believe the fire started in the rear of the building. Partial demolition of the rear section of the building is planned, according to Ryan's office. The cause of that fire also remains under investigation.
I also read this morning that Salvatore's had a small fire yesterday, or Monday. Yeah, yesterday.
Oh.
And they're temporarily closed for a short period of time.
Wow.
It started in the ceiling of a dining room, I guess.
Wow.
So, fires are happening.
Yeah.
And Chili's looks to the past as it rolls out a new look.
Oh, Chile.
The future of Chili's looks a lot like its past. Red leather booths, a staple of Chili's restaurants in the 1990s, are coming back to the dining rooms. So are the colorful tile tables, but without the grout that made them difficult to clean. And the walls will be adorned with other nostalgic touches, like a print of its original menu from 1975 with prices that aren't too far from where they are now. Those nods to the past are why the thriving casual dining chain is debuting its new look in Dallas, the same city where it was founded more than 5 decades ago. Starting next year, Chili's aims to remodel about 10% of its roughly 1,200 U.S. restaurants each year until completion. It's part of Brinker International CEO and Chili's president Kevin Hochman's gambit to maintain momentum after 20 consecutive quarters of same-store sales growth and double-digit rises in traffic. Restaurant remodels can spark a bump in traffic and sales, most recently at Denny's and Burger King, but there can be risk, like last year's debacle at Cracker Barrel. Some customers were so angry by the stripped-down interior and modernized logo that the chain quickly backtracked. These brands are so big. Chili's is 50 years old, and they don't get there by accident, Huckman said. It's because there's things about them that people grew up with that made them really, really special, whether it was the margaritas or the fajitas or those tile tables. Chili's success is a rare feat during an overall slowdown in dining. It's now the second largest casual dining chain by revenue in the United States, according to the data firm Technomic, fueled by better food and pushing value to customers wary of higher prices. It's also been successful in taking meaningfully larger percentage of visitors from both its full-service and fast food rivals because of its focus on value. Hochman, who joined Chili's parent company Brinker in 2022, helped orchestrate that turnaround. He credits a simple recipe: good food, quality service, and low price points. Even our guest check today against casual dining is under $3 to $4 versus the average, he said. There's nothing really magical about that. Under Hochman's tenure, Chili's slimmed down the menu to improve wait times. He also nixed coupons in favor of easy-to-understand promotions like its popular 3 for Me value meals, which include an appetizer, entree, and a drink, starting at only $10.99. Its Triple Dipper appetizer deal went viral on TikTok for the fried mozzarella cheese pulls. After spending hundreds of millions of dollars over the past few years on minor improvements, such as fixing roofs and windows or repairing equipment, Hochman said the time was right to update the overall look. The restaurant's appearances haven't been touched in more than 2 decades. We're shifting from defense of just making sure the buildings feel really good, he said. Now we're moving to offense, which is how do we start elevating the atmosphere? Chili's is leaning heavily into nostalgia, like installing Southwestern tile on the building's exterior and adding a Welcome to Chili's sign to the entrance that was drawn by the chalk artist who decorated the original location. The recognizable tiles were also added to a redesigned bar that highlights its popular margarita.
No, margarita, baby. Margaritaville. And you are listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News.
I am?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Did you know that?
I did.
Okay. And this is the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 27 minutes past the hour, and I think we need some emotional fitness. What do you think? Unless you've gone off the grid, you know we have a historic election this year, and it's dividing the country as well as some relationships. I have never seen more partners in disagreement over the candidates and the issues. I'm sure some couples are considering separating until the election is over, or even contemplating divorce. I find this confounding, because togetherness is about you and me against the world, not about my choice is better than yours. You should not allow your political views to interfere with your family and your home life. Yes, you may disagree, but that's no reason to trash your relationship or your partner. Please consider taking political discussions off the table if you think they're damaging your relationship or lowering your opinion of your partner. If you can't talk about your opinions without having to argue, then steer your conversations elsewhere. It's a simple choice when you look at the toxic energy that can come from having different opinions. These arguments are clearly not worth the pain they can cause. Everyone has a right to their own opinion, but if yours is upsetting the one you love, you don't need to express it. Our leaders change, whereas your relationships need to be a constant, because no matter who wins, there are going to be challenges that you and your partner can best deal with as a united team. If you are divided, you'll find life's challenges much more difficult. These big political races can bring out our fear and insecurities, and we may project them onto the ones we love when they don't agree with us. If you are angry with members of your family because they see things differently, you have to let them be who they are and vote for whomever they choose. Your relationship doesn't need any additional grudges or doubts. Accept your mate for who they are and let it be. It may help to remember that millions of other people are having their own opinions, and the two of you, no matter how you vote, cannot overcome the majority. Of course, every vote matters, but the election is not being held in your living room, and you need to keep your home life peaceful. Home should be a wonderful place of solace to rest your weary mind after work. kids, school, daily life, and political races.
If only you could keep those commercials off the TV.
I know, right? Actually, if you can keep the conversation civil, making differing opinions can make your interactions more interesting. Differences in relationships are not necessarily bad, and they can make for a more dynamic connection if you allow them to. Republican, Democrat, or Independent, it matters not when it comes to caring and respecting the ones you love. Don't let the candidates into your bedroom, but keep your space for yourselves.
That sounds like good advice. You know, the price of strawberries could soon jump.
And that affects my emotional fitness.
It does. Strawberries offer a taste of summer even when they are eaten in the dead of winter.
Ooh.
But the year-round treat Americans have grown accustomed to could soon get more expensive. The Trump administration is investigating whether Mexican growers are selling winter-harvested strawberries in the United States at unfairly low prices, a determination that could lead to tariffs on those imports and ultimately higher the costs for shoppers. If that happens, it would mark a break from decades of largely duty-free trade for Mexican strawberries under U.S. free trade agreements. It could also add to affordability concerns heading into the pivotal midterm elections as consumers already feel the squeeze from higher gas prices. A whopping 98% of U.S. strawberry imports came from Mexico last year, with shipments worth more than $1 billion, according to data from the Department of Agriculture. The U.S. becomes particularly reliant on Mexican strawberries during the winter months when domestic production slows. The case was brought by Strawberry Growers for Fair Trade, a coalition of Florida strawberry producers whose berries are typically harvested during the winter months. Mexican imports have grown faster than demand for winter strawberries, taking market share from U.S. growers by selling at lower prices, said Daniel Pickard, the lead counsel for the coalition. If the case succeeds, he expects the tariffs to have a relatively modest impact on consumer prices while helping U.S. farmers compete. There's a recent example of how complicated that can be in practice. Tomato prices were 12.8% higher last month than a year earlier, according to the Consumer Price Index. That comes after the U.S. imposed a roughly 17% anti-dumping duty on most Mexican tomatoes last July. But it would be a mistake to attribute that increase entirely to the tariffs. Adverse weather conditions in tomato-growing regions of Mexico and freezing temperatures in parts of Florida during the first 2 months of this year also played a role. An April report from the Department of Commerce found this. The Commerce Department is expected to release its preliminary findings in the strawberry case, which could call for higher tariffs, and that will be by next Tuesday. It will likely be several months before final determination is made. Even after Commerce issues its preliminary finding, the tariff rate could still change.
That's a scary thought because that's a lot of strawberries coming into our country.
It is.
98%? Yikes. Okay, and now I'm moving on to Eric. Dear Eric, what should one consider if thinking about divorce? My spouse and I have been married for more than 40 years. The first 41 were very positive. We both worked so we're not underfoot, were supportive and loving of each other, and had many wonderful experiences. Now, over time in retirement, daily life has become unpleasant. We both had a major health issue and supported each other through it. However, my spouse is generally negative and critical toward me, which is wearing on me. Couples therapy is not an option. Even though we have a wonderful history, I'm not sure I want to live the remainder of my life like this. I know I could get by financially, although the divorce process itself would undoubtedly be fraught. However, I can't see what the future would look like alone as a currently active senior citizen, so I feel stuck. What can you suggest for me to help work through this decision? Signed, On the Cusp. Dear Cusp, I'm sorry your marriage has become difficult for you. Changes in life can, of course, change the way marriages work. Spouses have to endeavor to meet each other where they are throughout a union. But the negativity and criticalness your spouse is exhibiting makes that hard, and it's not fair. This isn't healthy for either of you. You write that couples counseling isn't an option. Is this because your spouse won't agree to it? That's a huge roadblock for many couples. If your spouse acknowledges that there is a problem, but won't do anything to fix it, it puts you in a bind. You do have options, however. First, you can explore therapy on your own. Even if you were going to couples counseling, I'd encourage you to also talk with someone one-on-one so that you can process your feelings and make plans for the future with clear eyes. You might even tell your spouse that you're going to therapy and talk about why. You might explain that part of your motivation is because you want to have a better quality of life. It can become easy to take life, love, and long-term companionship for granted. It's important to recognize that they are gifts, and with therapy, we can continue to appreciate them and navigate changes. Also consider talking to a divorce attorney. This doesn't commit you to anything. Right now, the future probably looks daunting and hazy. Being able to think through your financial and legal position, as well as your possibilities for social support, will give you more information with which to make a decision. Dear Eric, I qualify for a home cleaning service through a city program for low-income residents. They have different groups of contractors under one main organization. Seems like I get somebody from a different service every other week. I assumed they would use the products I have on hand, but one of them insisted that I had to give her $25 to buy the products she liked best, claiming that she didn't think anything I had was effective. That really set me back. I know that I pay on a sliding scale, and I couldn't afford to pay much before this started, but all of the other cleaners that come are willing to use what I already have. I already hinted to the supervisor that I wanted the $25 to go toward my bill, but she only agreed it was a big shock to me. I probably can't get a refund, but she wanted me to drive to the store to buy the stuff. Is this fair? Can I do anything? Signed, Not Filthy Rich. Dear Not Rich, the cleaner is entitled to her preference regarding products, but it doesn't sit right that she insisted you give her money. I hope at least she left the products in your home instead of taking them with her when she left. However, if she was unwilling to do the cleaning with the products already available, she should have declined the placement or talked to the program supervisor about how to best set herself and the clients up for success. Your recourse at this point is talking directly to the supervisor rather than hinting about your displeasure. Express your frustration about being charged extra. Explain how this differs from what you would expect of this professional relationship, and ask that in the future you not be assigned any cleaners who will charge you extra. It may not be within the program's purview or budget to refund your money at this point, but it's worth asking what, if anything, they can do to help offset the unexpected cost. Should this situation ever arise again, it's fine to politely decline and even forego that week's cleaning before taking out your wallet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, since we're still on this kind of lighter stuff, let's try Heloise. Dear Heloise, I read the letter from Patty, who wants to lose weight but can't exercise due to having bad knees. My hint for her is to try water aerobics. It's non-weight-bearing exercise, and her knees won't be affected. And that's Helen via email. Helen, this is an excellent idea. I've tried water aerobics, and it was fun. Plus, I met and made a new friend. How about reducing plastic usage? Dear Heloise, we all know plastic bags are a problem in our environment. They choke animals, create garbage, and break down into microplastics that have even been found in babies' placentas. Here are some ways to reduce their use. Promise yourself never to buy another plastic bag. I guarantee they will still invade your house, but you can reuse them, which thereby reduces your plastic footprint. When it comes to freezing items, the bags in your cereal and cracker boxes are plastic, and they're thick, resilient, and perfect for freezing. Use them to freeze baked goods, meat, etc. Close them with twist ties or masking tape, and just label them appropriately. You probably already have dozens of free bags that grocery stores give out to put produce in. Wash them, bring them back to the store, or use them again. Or make yourself simple bags from old t-shirts or fabric scraps. Nuts and many other bakery items come in closed zip plastic bags. Wash and reuse these for lunches and sandwiches instead. Save clean jam jars for small and wet items like grapes, salad, or peeled fruit. Most waste baskets, like the ones in an office or a living room, don't need plastic bags as they aren't used for wet items. For bathrooms or the kitchen, you can use bags that pet food comes in. Paper grocery bags that are lined with fold-up newspaper or bags that come from deliveries and online shopping products. Cover any air holes with masking tape. For storing food in the refrigerator, besides reusing your previously acquired grocery bags, you can make bags from fabric scraps and use beeswax cloth to cover open containers. Bread bags work great for picking up dog poop. Don't have any reusable grocery bags? Take an old t-shirt, cut off the sleeves, enlarge the neck opening, and sew the bottom shut. The arm and neck holes become the handles. Now you have an instant grocery bag.
Yeah.
Hope this assists us all in maintaining the beautiful places that we live in, as well as our health.
Do you remember when we used to use bags for waterproof boots?
Yes, I do. They were
Right.
sandwich bags.
That's right.
Yeah, they work great.
Yes,
Well,
they
they made your feet a little bit sweaty.
Yes.
But they worked. And they helped me get my foot in the boot.
Yes,
they were
that's true.
slippery.
Yes, they did.
Very good. Thank you for that hint.
Anytime.
Let's talk about keeping hair out of food just for a brief moment.
Okay.
Dear Heloise, before I prepare a meal, especially if I'm making food for a group or a party, I take a lint roller and run this over my clothes and my hair. I have long hair and I feel like there's nothing worse than eating something with hair in it. I always put my hair up when I'm preparing food. I hope this helps everyone. From
Especially
Becky.
The people eating at my house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you top that?
Yes,
Go
I
to
can.
sports.
Well, Von Miller is back on the scene.
All right.
You remember Von Miller. So we are moving on to sports. Ex-Bill linebacker Von Miller is going to be playing with the Cowboys. Eight-time Pro Bowler linebacker Von Miller is set to play his 16th NFL season back in his home state after signing with the Cowboys. He confirmed the news, first reporting to ESPN's Adam Scheffler Sunday in his Instagram account, posting a photoshopped image of himself wearing a Cowboy uniform and sporting the number 40 jersey, and his caption read, "Dallas, let's make this one special." Here we go, Miller also posted as the caption for a gallery that included a 2006 photo from his high school playing days as a member of DeSoto's Eagles. The Cowboy later announced the signing terms. My computer glitched on me again.
Oh, no.
Oh no.
And I was just looking.
Okay.
The front office had hinted it was searching for pieces to contribute to their team, and following a live joint practice against the Los Angeles Rams and an exhibition game against the Seattle Seahawks, the team finalized the move.
Okay. Miller will be in a purely rotational role at this point of his career, and a storied career it has been. The 37-year-old edge rusher ranked first among active players in career sacks, 138.5. The number 2 overall pick in the 2011 NFL Draft, has had at least 6 sacks in all but 2 of his seasons and has earned 7 All-Pro honors, but hasn't done so or made a Pro Bowl since 2019. He's been well compensated for those sacks, too. Across 4 NFL teams, Miller has already totaled $198.74 million in salary and bonus compensation. Miller is a native of Texas who played collegiately at Texas A&M. He elected free agency in March after 1 season with the Washington Commanders, and he's now set to play for his 3rd team in as many seasons. That means that no matter what emerges from the details of his new contract, which will likely be revealed at some point on Monday or Tuesday, Miller will become a $200 million man. The minimum veteran salary for a player with 7 or more years experience is $1.3 million. The 2-time Super Bowl champion has also amassed 607 tackles, 271 quarterback hits, 177 tackles for loss, 27 forced fumbles, 9 fumble recoveries, and 2 interceptions over 203 games, 164 starts for the Broncos, the LA Rams, and the Buffalo Bills and Commanders. Last season, Miller played in all 17 games for Washington and posted 9 sacks despite just playing 37%. That's good. 37% of the snaps. Miller won Super Bowl 50 with the Broncos in 2016 and was named MVP of the game. He had 2.5 sacks against Carolina Panthers quarterback Cam Newton and 2 strip sacks. The Defenders then hoisted the Lombardi Trophy for Super Bowl 61 in 2022 with the Rams, who acquired him in a blockbuster trade. In 10 seasons, he earned over $143.7 million in Denver, playing across 2 contracts. He was traded to the Rams in 2016, earned just over $700,000 for his tenure there, and then moved on to the Buffalo Bills, where he played 3 seasons and earned $47.2 million before his lone year in D.C. for $7.1 million.
Wow. Oh, you want me to go on?
I want you to go on.
Well, let's talk about college football then.
All right.
Fans are going to get a chance to vote for the Heisman. Fans will cast the first vote for the Heisman Trophy this season under a new platform which was unveiled on Monday. The website, hopefuls.heisman.com, will include official player data and updated player ratings for the EA Sports college football video game. Starting on September 9th, visitors can cast votes daily. The results of the fan vote will be unveiled live on ESPN during the weekend of conference championship games, with the players ranked first, second, and third counting as the first official Heisman ballot. We surveyed college football fans, and they told us clearly that they want more data on players and more ways to engage with the Heisman Trophy throughout the season. Heisman Trophy Trust CEO Jeff Price said. While positions like quarterback and running back will naturally have more data available for votes to consider, advanced analytics are included to encourage fans to weigh players from all positions. Every player who steps onto the field this fall begins the season as a Heisman hopeful, with the chance to earn the award on the field of play, Price said. This platform, working hand in hand with the schools, helps us shine a light on those players and bring their stories forward all season long. Carnegie Mellon Sports Analytics Center is assisting Heisman with the platform along with the Next League, Yankaroo, and CLC. We're creating a methodology to dynamically weight fan votes based on data observed throughout the season, CMSAC Director Ron Yurko said, per ESPN. While fans will be allowed to vote each day throughout the season, CMSAC's data-driven approach will guide how much weight to give votes each week. Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza won the 2025 Heisman Trophy. Ohio State and Oregon lead the AP poll. For the first time in 65 years, and only the second time ever, the Big Ten Conference boasts the top 2 teams in the AP preseason top 25 poll, with Ohio State ranked number 1 and Oregon number 2. The Buckeyes received 40 first-place votes to gain the number 1 spot for the 9th time overall, and the first time since 2015. The Ducks, awarded 14 first-place votes, had never been ranked as high as number 2 in the preseason poll, having opened at number 3 4 times. 2-time defending SEC champion Georgia did not receive any first-place votes, but is ranked number 3 ahead of Notre Dame, 6 first-place votes, and Texas. Defending national champions Indiana, 8 first-place votes, is number 6, just ahead of title game opponent Miami, which received 1 first-place vote. Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma round out the top 10. The last time 2 Big Ten teams topped the preseason poll was 1961,
Wow.
2 years before I was born, when Ohio and Ohio State were numbers 1 and 2. While the Big Ten receives the accolades, the Southeastern Conference leads all conferences, with 9 teams in the top 25, including 5 in the top 10 for the first time since 2013. The Big 12 has 4 teams in the top 25, highlighted by conference champions Texas Tech, number 12. In the ACC, Miami is joined by number 19, SMU, and number 24, Louisville.
And a little baseball, the Yanks win made to order with Rice. First baseman Ben Rice clubbed a 2-run home run in the 10th inning Sunday afternoon, and the visiting New York Yankees defeated the Toronto Blue Jays 4-3. Rice, whose error led to Toronto's tying run in the 9th, took a 2-0 slider from Braden Fisher, who 3-4, to right field for his 33rd homer as the Yankees salvaged the finale of a 3-game series. Rice was 0 for 12 in the series before his 10th inning homer. Wow. Andre Jimenez flared an RBI single in the bottom of the 10th against Tim Hill, who earned his second save. David Bednar, who's 6-3, allowed an unearned run in the first to third inning to pick up the win. The Yankees scored once in the third against Dylan Cease. Jose Caballero inserted a second base in a second base.
Inserted at second base.
Inserted at second base in a shuffle lineup, worked a walk after winning 2 consecutive challenges that changed strike calls to balls. He took second on Royce's chopper in front of the plate and slid home on Luis Garcia Jr.'s sacrifice fly to moderate center. Toronto tied the game against Ryan Weathers in the fifth. Kazuma Okamoto doubled off the base of the wall and scored on Daz Cameron's double into the left field corner. Cease retired 11 in a row until Heliot Ramos walked with 2 out in the sixth. He stole second before Trent Grisham was caught looking, and a third strike for Cease's 200th strikeout of the season. New York had a first-inning double by Ramos in the first and did not get another hit until George Lombard Jr. doubled high off the left field wall with 1 out in the seventh to end Cease's outing. Brendan Little took over and intentionally walked pinch hit Paul Goldschmidt. Caballero lined a 2-out RBI single to left, and pinch runner Jazz Chisholm ran home when Caballero was caught in a rundown between first and second. It was ruled, however, that Caballero was tagged out before Chisholm crossed the plate. Cease allowed 2 runs, 2 hits, and 3 walks with 10 strikeouts and 6 1/3 innings, and Weathers allowed 1 run, 6 hits, and 1 walk with 4 strikeouts and 7 1/3 innings. Rice flubbed pinch hitter Josh Smith's simple grounder to first to open the ninth, and Alejandro Kirk walked. A wild pitch moved the runners to second and third, and Ernie Clement tied the game with the sacrifice fly. And moving on to the Mets, Luis Torrens hit a go-ahead 2-run homer in the 4th inning for the host New York Mets, who continued their post-trade deadline hot streak by closing out a 3-game sweep of the Washington Nationals with a 4-3 victory. Torrens' homer capped a 3-1 fourth for the Mets, who have won 9 of 12 since dealing off much of their last-place roster at the August 3rd deadline. The sweep inched the Mets within 3.5 games of the 4th-place Nationals in the National League East. New York hasn't finished last since 2003. Jorge Polanco opened the Mets scoring with a run-scoring groundout, while Jarrett Young added pivotal insurance with a 5th-inning RBI double. Young finished 2 for 4, while Bo Bichette was 3 for 3 with a walk. Every Mets starter hit at least 1 hit except A.J. Ewing and Carson Bench, and my Red Sox, Boston Place designated hitter Yoshida hamstring and pitcher Justin Slayton on the injured disabled list. Yoshida is hitting .274 with 5 home runs and 87 against, and Slayton is 2-4 with a 4.60 ERA.
Wow. 10 soccer girls are worth watching. Here's a look at 10 high school girls soccer players to watch during the 2026 season. The players are listed in no particular order, with most of them being named to the coach's All-Western New York first team in the fall of 25. Addison Malkos, 12, grade 12, from Frontier. An all-state second-team selection, Malkos had 2 assists, led Frontier to the Section 6 Class AA title, named to ECIC 1 first team. Gianna Conti, grade 12 from Frontier. An all-Western New York large school selection, Conti had an assist. Was vital to Frontier's defense as the Falcons went 16-3-1. She was an ECIC 1 first team selection. Adisa Alaya, grade 11 from Wilson. A Niagara Eileen's first team selection, she was also selected to the All-State second team, led Wilson to the Section 6 Class C title. She scored 36 goals and had 9 assists. She's a 4-time All-Niagara Orleans selection. Marley Skalski, grade 10, St. Mary's. The only freshman to make the All-Western New York first team, Skalski delivered in some of the biggest moments. She was the Lancers' best offensive player, leading the program to its first Catholic state title. Skalski had 43 goals and 25 assists and named to the Class B first team.
That's excellent.
Grace Chrisman, grade 12 from Starpoint, led Starpoint to win its first 19 games, including the Section 6 Class A title. Chrisman did it all with 43 goals, 25 assists. Named to the All-State second team in Class A. She is a Duquesne verbal commit. Grace Gary Pree, grade 12 from Portville. Named to All-State third team, scored 17 goals, had 11 assists for the Panthers, and team advanced to the Section 6 Class C semifinals. Elizabeth Gray, grade 12. Lewiston Porter selected to the All-Western New York first team for second straight year and selected to the All-State third team in the Niagara Frontier League first team. Shia Whitcup, grade 12, from Lockport, had 12 goals and 16 assists, was named to the All-Western New York Large Schools and Niagara Frontier League first team. Cecil Tonelli, grade 11, Fredonia, named to the All-Western New York Small Schools, collected 34 goals and 9 assists. And finally, Claire Jones, grade 11, from St. Mary's, named to the All-State Class B first team, had 8 goals, 11 assists, selected to the Monsignor Martin Division A first team, and was named the team's playoff MVP.
And on this day in history in 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified, giving U.S. women the vote. Tennessee was the 36th and deciding state, approving the amendment by just 1 vote. And I will say this, you all who think that you don't matter, 1 vote made a difference for women to be able to vote in this country. So don't ever think that your vote or your opinion does not matter.
And you've been listening to reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, August 18th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., and we rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been Lori and
Lita.
Thank you so much for listening, and have a great rest of your day.
And keep smiling.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the supermarket ads. Following that, at noon, we have today's USA Today. Stay with us for these readings and more through the rest of the day. listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability